Hello and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be continuing our House prediction series for the 2022 midterm election. So we already covered the Northwest, and if you want to see that video, I'll leave it at the end of this one. But today we're going to focus mainly on the southern states, the 14 states that I've categorized as southern states for the sake of this regional prediction video. We'll get around to the other regions either at the end of this month or the beginning of next month, and then I'll do another set of House predictions like this in October as we get a lot closer to the midterm election. So if you want to see more videos like this and you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing down below and hitting the like button. So anyway, let's get straight into the video. So in the southern US, most of the districts are safe Republican. That's partly because the South is a very conservative part of the country, as well as the fact that some of the blue districts have been cracked. You know, you have districts like the Nashville district in Tennessee that's been kind of cracked between other districts. You have similar stories in Texas, Georgia. So a couple of blue seats that otherwise would have been in this map are already eliminated and replaced with safe red ones. So we'll start off with the state of Virginia, and we have 3 districts that are not safe in Virginia. We'll start off with Virginia's 2nd, which is held currently by Democrat Elaine Luria. She actually won this district by a decent margin. The district voted to the left of the nation slightly in this congressional race, and that's partly because the Libertarian or Independent candidate took a decent amount of votes away from Scott Taylor, who I think otherwise would have done a lot better in this race, given that 2020 was a more Republican-friendly year as compared to 2018. But nonetheless, Luria, as an incumbent, easily won this race. She won it by about 6 points. But the district then was an R+2 district. It encompassed parts of Virginia Beach, James City County. You have parts of York County and Hampton. So a much bluer district than the new one, which is an R+6, which now encompasses the peninsula here. You have Virginia Beach, and you have parts of Chesapeake, Suffolk, and I think Isle of Wight County. So these areas in general are a lot redder. And how we saw them vote in 2021, this district went solidly for Glenn Youngkin back in 2021. So even if 2022 is not as solid of a red year, and granted this district does have an incumbent, I still think it's a very likely flip for the Republicans. So as of right now, I'm going to put it as lean Republican, since I think this is almost a guaranteed flip given the nature of the district. However, that's not always the case. House districts have a lot more nuance than other elections around the country. But I think as of right now, this is probably a safe prediction that this is probably going to be a flip in Virginia's 2nd. Moving on to Virginia's 7th, this is currently held by Representative Spamberger. If we go to her old district, she was actually in an R+5 district, which is almost a likely Republican district based on the partisan lean. Now, when you actually get into the nitty-gritty of it and realize that it's voting +5 to the right of the nation, it's about a 50-50 district when you look at the 2020 election. And looking at those results, Spamberger won this election by about a point. So going ahead to the new district, she's now in a D+2 district. So given the 2020 environment, she would be in a pretty comfortable position. And in normal years, she would be in a fairly comfortable position to win this district. However, 2022 is not expected to be friendly for the Democratic Party. So as a result, it's going to put her in a more tricky position, especially if the nation is voting R+6, R+7. That means this district is voting about R+4, R+5. And given that Spamberger did about the same as Biden in her district, she might have done a little bit better. But given that she did about the same as an incumbent, I would say this is also probably a safe district to call as a flip. I don't think it's going to be as lopsided as Virginia's 2nd, but if I had to guess right now, it'd probably be about a 3 or 4 point swing. This would probably be more about 5 points of a flip for the Republicans. Now moving on up to the 10th district. Now, this is Jennifer Wexton's district. Back in 2020 and the previous elections for the past decade, it was a D+12 district. She won this election handily back in 2020, getting 56% of the vote. She won it by a safe margin. But now her district has gotten slightly redder. It's now only D+8, and it encompasses different regions of Virginia. Loudoun County stays about the same. You have some areas of Fairfax County as well, and I think maybe parts of Prince William here. And then, of course, you have the city of Winchester and the surrounding exurban counties. Now the district still encompasses Prince William. I don't think it encompasses Fairfax at all, and then stretches down into Fauquier County. So it's a much redder district in comparison. Not crazy, but couple points redder. So looking at the environment we're expected to see in 2022, Wexton being an incumbent, I'm going to put this as lean Democratic. I think the Republican challenger for this district, I don't remember his name at the moment, but he does look like a fairly good candidate to run in Northern Virginia. So I think it's going to be relatively close, but I think Wexton still wins this by about 4 or 5 points. So this ultimately will be a Democratic hold. So moving on down to the state of North Carolina, the Republicans nominated a pretty strong candidate for this district. I think this is probably going to be a likely Republican district. It's R+3. Given the environment we're expected to see, I think it's probably going to be a likely margin. I could see the Republican winning here by 10 or 11 points. So we'll put that as a pretty likely district. Again, it is kind of interesting the way the North Carolina map is now, because I think parts of Raleigh are still in this district. Most of it is in this bluer district, but I think it's been chopped up in sort of a weird way. I think they could have made this a bit more compact, but I think when the courts were making this district, they tried to give the Democrats as fair of a shot as winning a majority of seats as possible. Moving on up to North Carolina's 9th, I think this is definitely going to be, we'll say lean Republican, I guess, given the environment, but think about higher lean, like 5, almost 6 points. North Carolina's 1st is going to be really interesting because this is only a D+5 district. Previously, it was a D+7 district, and you had J.K. Butterfield, the incumbent Democratic representative, running in that district. He had won his district by less than 10 points back in 2020. Sandy Smith was a pretty good challenger to Butterfield, and ultimately she kept this race within 10 points, despite the national environment being D+5 and this being a D+7 district, voting left of the nation overall in 2020. So given that fact, and also given the fact that if you look at the presidential election results out of North Carolina, this is a region of the state that has been trending to the right. Nearly all of the counties that make up the current 1st district have trended more to the right. And even though these counties have sizable black populations, they're also very rural counties. And I think there's a slight difference between black rural voters and black urban voters in terms of voting patterns, at least post-2020, as these districts were able to swing more to the right. The urban districts obviously swung to the right as well, but not to the same degree among black voters. So I think, actually, I'm going to make a bold prediction. I actually think this could be a tilt Republican flip. There's no incumbent. Butterfield is not running for re-election. And I'm not sure who the Democratic challenger is at the moment. I think it might be Erica Smith. And if that's the case, she's a very progressive Democrat. And this is a district that's been moving a bit more to the right. So I think ultimately this might be a flip. So that's already 2 of the toss-up districts in North Carolina going to the Republicans. The next one is a district outside of Charlotte. If we take a look at the new map, it's a D+11. That's definitely going to be a likely district. The only reason I don't put it as safe is because there's currently no incumbent right now. So we'll put it as likely Democratic for now. So moving on down, again, we don't really have a whole lot of competitive seats. North Carolina is not competitive at all. South Carolina, rather, is not competitive at all. Most of the seats in Georgia aren't, Alabama, Mississippi, Tennessee, and so on. So we're going to take a look now at Georgia. So looking at Georgia, we really only have one district that's slightly competitive, and that is Georgia's 2nd. It is a D+4 district. And looking at it last time, it was a D+6. Sanford Bishop, I believe, is running for re-election to this district. This district encompasses a lot of counties that are part of the South's Black Belt. These have strong black populations in a lot of these counties, so very strong for the Democratic Party. And black voters tend to vote in off-year midterms. It's usually white Democrats and other Democratic groups that tend to have more depressed turnout. But black voters, relative to other demographic groups, tend to turn out in higher numbers in midterm and off-year elections. Hence why in 2014, states like North Carolina and Georgia were still voting about the same as where they were on the presidential level, give or take, because black voters came out even in those off-year elections. Right now, I think since Sanford Bishop is running again, he overperformed in his district back in 2020. He won it by a safe margin, almost 20 points. I think this district, as of now, is likely Democratic. I could see it changing as the race tightens up, but as of right now, this is going to be a likely Democratic district. Moving on down to the state of Florida, we don't really have a whole lot of competitive districts out of Florida. The Republicans did a good job of solidifying districts in their favor, particularly in the Tallahassee area over here and Jacksonville. So we'll start at the bottom here. We have two districts in South Florida with incumbents. We have the 28th and the 27th. One is D+1, one is D+4. I think the D+4 easily is going to be a likely margin. Could be 10 or 11 points. Could even be safe. Given that I expect South Florida to come out strong for DeSantis and Rubio in 2022, and I think that's going to have down ballot ramifications. So we'll put that as likely for now. Same with, we'll put this as lean, I guess, but actually I'll put it as likely. This is a D+1 district, but Representative Salazar actually unseated an incumbent back in 2020, and she won her district by almost 3 points doing so. And even though this is a D+1 district, again, partisan leans for the districts aren't solely based on 2020. A lot of these districts trended a lot more to the right. So ultimately, I think that both of these districts are probably going to be likely Republican. We can look at the 23rd district, Ted Dutch's district. If we take a look at how it voted back in 2020, it was a safe margin. I don't expect it to be as safe this time around. I'll put it as like likely, maybe 10 or 11 points, but that's going to stay likely Democratic. Moving on up north to the Tampa Bay area. Previously, Tampa Bay had one sort of decently blue district, and then you had an R+1 district with Charlie Crist. If we look at how that voted back in 2020, this was a safe margin, the 14th, and then you had Charlie Crist going to him by a decent margin as well. He is a former Republican. He does have appeal among Republicans, so he did get some crossover votes there. Ultimately, I think that the blue drawn district in the Tampa Bay area is probably going to stay blue. It's probably going to be likely blue this time around given the environment, but in future elections, it'll probably be safe. And of course, we have an open district here in Florida's 15th. It's an R+7. It's probably going to just be likely just because there's no incumbent, but in future elections, probably going to be safe. So that's really it for Florida. The whole eastern seaboard here really has the most competitive districts out of the entire South. Most of the deep South areas over here really don't have a whole lot. Arkansas's district really isn't all that competitive, and even back in 2020 when you had the old district, which was R+14, it still went +10 for incumbent French Hill back in 2020. Now it's a much safer district. Little Rock has been broken up. All of these districts are going to be safe Republican. Oklahoma's 5th, which previously was, again, a really safe Republican district overall. R+11, it should not have gone blue. It did in 2018, kind of as a fluke, and then it snapped back in the 2020 election. By a considerable amount, 52 to 48, so about 4 points or so. And ultimately, this district is safe this time around, so we're just going to put it as safe. I just wanted to talk about it since it was sort of a likely Republican district before, but the Republicans have since kind of chopped up Oklahoma City in a way that it's divided in multiple districts now, and it's not really competitive for Democrats. Lastly, we have the state of Texas. We're going to start off with the border district here, which is Texas's 23rd congressional district. Tony Gonzalez, the incumbent, currently is in an R+13 district. Previously, he was in an R+5. If we take a look at how the border district voted last time, it voted +4 for Tony Gonzalez. That lines up roughly with the partisan lean. In fact, this district voted to the right of the partisan lean if it's R+5 of the entire country. So I certainly think that this district is going to be safe this time around. Was a formerly competitive district. Given how the Rio Grande area of Texas has been trending lately and no signs of those trends stopping, I think this is going to be a solidly Republican district in 22. Now that brings us to the border districts here, the 3 border districts. So previously, all 3 of these districts were competitive. It was D+5, D+2, D+4. If we take a look at the House election results out of these districts, all of them were decently competitive, at least one of them. The district, Texas's 15th, Henry Cuellar's district, was pretty solid. Again, a lot of Republicans voted for Cuellar. A lot of Hispanic voters that voted for Trump voted for Cuellar. So in the 34th, that's a district now that I think is safe Democrat. Yeah, it's D+17. That's not always solid, though, because a lot of these border areas did get redder in 2020, but we're going to put that as likely for now. This district here, I think, is a toss-up. It's an open district. I think there's actually going to be a special election there right now. I wouldn't be surprised if that's likely Republican at the end of the day in 2022, with an incumbent most likely winning that special election. And then, of course, we have the last district here, District 28, which on our current map is D+7. The former map, it was D+4. If Henry Cuellar is the nominee, I expect it still to go to him, even during the red wave year. So we're going to put that as, it'll get closer. Actually, no, we'll keep it as likely for now. He tends to do really well with the Hispanic voters down in his constituency. So we're going to keep that as likely blue for now. And really, a lot of the competitive districts in and around the Dallas-Fort Worth area and Houston are gone now. All of these districts are safe either for Democrats or Republicans, the way they've been drawn. Again, previously, we had a decent amount of competitive districts. You know, we had Texas is 7th, which only went blue by 3 points back in 2020. The Republicans kind of took a gamble with the new Texas maps. They took a lot of districts that they could otherwise pick up in a favorable year, and they made them safe blue. But on the contrary, they made a lot of districts where they had Republican incumbents that, you know, were barely holding on in the 2020 elections. You know, the R+10 districts, they solidified those into R+20, R+25. So the incumbents probably won't really have a tight election for the entire decade, and that's kind of what the Republicans were aiming for. So that's really why the only competitive districts in Texas right now are these border areas. But again, I wouldn't be surprised if you even saw a clean sweep in the border region, given how much it's trended to the right since the 2016 elections. This currently makes our House map at 124 to 52 for the Republicans. So far, the Republicans doing strong, but again, we still haven't covered really any of the major blue states yet, like California, like New York, like Illinois. And once we get there, obviously the dynamic's going to change considerably. But as 538 has the districts right now, Republicans are likely to be favored given how the maps are drawn, but we'll see if that pans out in our predictions. So anyway, guys, thank you all for watching this video. Please leave a thumbs up if you enjoyed. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Hit the bell notification so you don't miss any more videos I put out. And as always, again, thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.